This is Toon Talk Weekly, episode 210. This week, Brad and I are joined by our good buddy and Dan Harmon expert, Ethan Barnowsky, when we watch an episode of the series HarmonQuest.
Jeff and Dan, what are your character names?
My name is Fondue Zubag. I am a half-orc ranger.
My name is Bone Weevil, and I am a goblin rogue.
Fondue and Bone Weevil, you find yourselves in the town square of Urskar Village enjoying the Festival of Restoration, a celebration that occurs every 100 years in honor of the creation of the Demon Seal and the world's salvation. You're with, what's your character's name?
Teflonto.
You're with Teflonto, your old friend, mentor, and role model, enjoying the feast.
A toast, gentlemen.
A toast.
To the Demon Seal.
And the Festival of Restoration.
Here in Urskar
Village.
That's the power of note-taking.
The day just keeps getting better. It's been Tuesday once again. That means it's time for another episode.
Man, where is that kid?
Hey everybody, it's Tuesday once again. That means it's time for another episode of the weekly cartoon podcast, Toon Talk Weekly. That is, of course, this show. Wanted to thank you once again for joining us this week to chat all about cartoons. We brought a guest this week, so it's not just going to be me, Jake Williams. I got my good buddy Brad Shamaluski. He's not a guest. He's here all the time.
Hey, always here.
So would you call yourself a guest? No, co-host. You've upgraded at this point.
Yeah.
210 episodes in, it's time that you're actually
demoting me to guest.
Yeah, for this week only. We've also brought along our good buddy Ethan Barnowsky to talk some cartoons once again. What's up, man?
Hey guys.
It's this is like episode like 5 or 6. I don't know what it is, but you're
Hard to keep track of, yeah.
You're number one guest, top man.
What can I say?
Top one.
Top man.
Top cartoon one.
Top one guy. I made a joke when we decided to do an episode of HarmonQuest, the show we're doing this week. And I knew that, Ethan, you're a fan of Dan Harmon and his work, some of his cartoons and any of his shows. And I was like, Ethan, we should bring you on because we just bring you on when we need an expert in a field or like a thing. But then I remember we did like Doug together. So I don't know if you consider yourself a Doug expert.
Yeah, I was like, I like Doug, but I don't know if I'm an expert.
Wait, you weren't an expert at that?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Well, don't listen to that episode if you're ever considering doing anything because we didn't have an expert on that time. Episode 25, not an expert on Doug.
We were winging it big time.
Yeah. So this week we decided to do an episode, as I mentioned, of the show HarmonQuest. This is a show that's I think about a year old. It looks like it came out last summer-ish. And it's and I'm going to describe a little bit about it, but then I'm going to lean on Ethan to get a little bit more of the backstory here because honestly, I know very little about Dan Harmon or his work aside from, didn't he work on Rick and Morty? He works on Rick and Morty, right? He makes Rick and Morty?
Yeah, he's a co-creator of it.
No. He works on it.
I mean, he does.
Yeah.
Great capacity.
So HarmonQuest, a little bit about it is it's an American adult animated / live improvisation TV show. It's created by Dan Harmon, and it's part animated, part live action. And they actually cited the Ricky Gervais show as an influence on it, and I actually have no idea what that is. Is that do you guys know what that show is?
You haven't seen that?
I was actually gonna bring that up because it's the Ricky Gervais show. Is that the full name of it? It was their podcast, and they just animated stories and like cut pieces out of it, and then turned it into an animated show. So it's similar in that they would have a live video of them talking to each other, and then they would cut to animated, an animated rendition of whatever they were talking about.
Yeah, I can't help but think
that show was on HBO. I want to say.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Was it? Oh, why did I totally miss that? I'm assuming it's canceled at this point.
Yeah, I don't think it lasted long.
It seems like an idea. If that was on TV, especially like subscription TV, it seems like something maybe better suited for the internet, honestly. maybe because you can produce it faster, or maybe just because of the nature of like the niche type of content you can make for people on the internet that are just going to go discover it or go sign up for a service like SeeSo, where you can find this.
I guess, but they were in that phase of whatever Ricky Gervais does, give him money.
Oh.
He sucks, but give him money.
Brett's letting out his true feelings about Ricky Gervais right now.
Yeah, I like Ricky Gervais. I mean, he's at about 50% success rate, but he can do some stuff really good.
Complain and ask for more money.
Yeah. He's good at a couple characters, but that's about it.
I remember watching what was the web show, Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, the Jerry Seinfeld series. And I remember there being an episode, and I was like, "Oh, Brad, there's Ricky Gervais on this week," and you're like, "I probably just won't watch it then. I'm good." Like that was enough to let me know what you think of him. Also, the vibe then, if that was a reference for maybe what HarmonQuest became, I gotta say I'm thinking of Shorties Watching Shorties is the thing that comes to my mind. That was an old Comedy Central like quick show. Actually, it might have been a half-hour show where they would take stand-up comedians' bits and animate them, basically.
I don't think I ever saw that.
In my head, I picture a totally different show.
I was picturing Crank Yankers, but I don't know why.
That's not bad either. Was Crank Yankers puppets, right?
That was puppets, yeah.
Oh, so we'll never cover it on this show. That's what you're saying. No, Shorties Watching Shorties, they would have like two baby characters do the like interstitials, the in-betweens, and then they would go into some bit where they're watching TV, and it'd be like a Jim Brewer bit, and they'd animate the whole thing, and they put all these characters in.
Okay.
Actually,
I think it should be a TLC spin-off show of the little people watching girls. Like,
it's the people from the Little People Big World show watching the older seasons of Little People Big World. It's really what it is. That's probably mean.
That's
somehow,
where
I don't
that's
mean
where
it
we've
to be
landed.
that way. Yeah.
TV is now just other people watching TV.
I think so far we've made up more shows this episode than we've actually talked about the show we're watching, which is perfect. I think we're a cartoon factory now, is what we are. There's also actually WWE Network, because I know you guys are topical on that, or on top of that. They have a series now where it's wrestlers telling old travel stories and then people animate it. So it's like that's what they're doing in the meantime and not making more Camp WWE, I guess.
Okay.
So more on HarmonQuest. 1 season, 10 total episodes. It is on the SeeSo network, which is an NBC-owned comedy channel. Ethan was telling me earlier they have old like SNL. They might even have do they have the license to Monty Python? Because I saw some of that.
Yeah, they do. Mm-hmm.
I know some of that stuff is pretty prestigious. I remember when Yahoo got rights to like SNL for a few years, and that was like a big deal. So I guess NBC decided, let's just make our own thing.
Yeah, I feel like because they were launching a bunch of original content with SeeSo, they had to have some selling point to people that are like, I don't want to give more money to some internet service that has just like random shows. There's plenty of shows out there, so they're like, well, let's throw in SNL and Monty Python and I don't know, I think Late Night and those kind of Tonight Show kind of episodes are on there too.
Yeah, and I think it helps to kind of similar what FXX did or whatever their FX Now service is. They have exclusively The Simpsons. Like, so if you do want a big library of something to watch or like binge on, it's probably good to keep it close to the chest and keep it in your company rather than ship it off. Because now it's not just Netflix anymore. It's not just Hulu anymore. These companies are supposedly, or they're starting to launch successful platforms to actually host their content.
Yeah.
Versus just going to their websites, which typically are garbage. And actually, the series was renewed for a second season. HarmonQuest was on, and it's actually going to premiere on July 27th. So you guys are going to get this episode on the 18th. So 10 days after this, you can start watching season 2. It sounds like. I have no idea how they're released. If they do it weekly or if they do it all at once. I would love it to be.
We're not members of this site.
I think it's all at once, but
I feel like it'd be better if it was all at once, right? Because you could. Well, I guess much like a D&D campaign, you might pick it up later, so maybe it doesn't have to be all at once. But it's 2017, damn it. Drop all the shows on me at once. I want to watch it all the time. Yeah. And actually, Ethan, you'll be excited to hear this, although you may have already known that it's set to include other comedians like Kumail Nanjiani, Paul Scheer, Rob Corddry, Patton Oswalt, and others.
Nice.
So some fun guests on there. I kind of just want Kumail to sort of be on it all the time, if possible.
Yeah, he's on the first season, but I've only seen like clips of that episode.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, spoiler already how much I enjoyed this show. I'm probably going to subscribe to SeeSo right after this because I want to watch the rest of them. I think I can get them all in 7 days.
Yeah.
There you go.
The series is shot at Victory Studios in Glendale, California. It's animated by Starburns Industries. And actually, I guess this is where some of Ethan's background will come into play here, but Dan Harmon and Spencer Crittenden, two friends on the show, have been including D&D style segments into the end of Harmontown episodes for a while now. No, this is where I need Ethan. Ethan, what is Harmontown and what's the D&D kind of connection here?
All right, so Harmontown it's a weekly live podcast that they shoot. Now they shoot it at Starburns Industries, but they used to shoot it at the Nerd Melt or the Meltdown or whatever that comic book store in LA is that has a bunch of live shows and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Every Sunday night they would have a live show, and it was supposed to be like a town hall meeting, and so that's why it's called Harmontown. It was like the comptroller is Jeff Davis, who was also on HarmonQuest, and then Dan is the mayor, and so they would just like sit down and have like discussions about whatever, and usually they would just get really drunk, and Dan Harmon would start ranting about something, and it's super entertaining. And so one day they had this idea, one of the live shows, they had an idea like, does anyone in the audience know how to play D&D? Any Dungeon Masters out there? And this guy, Spencer, he rose his hand and came up on stage, and he was like a very shy, awkward nerd guy that had never been on stage before, and he was not a performer in any way. And they basically like talked him into coming back the following week with a campaign all written out and taught them how to play Dungeons and Dragons live. And so every week he would come back and he would be on the show, and like for the last like 30 minutes of every episode they would like continue on with the campaign. And now he's like really good friends with Dan Harmon. He basically hosts HarmonQuest, and he like works with them and tours with them and everything. It's pretty great. So yeah, I guess I don't know exactly when. I think they just realized like this is a really fun idea. Like, how can we capitalize on this and make it more interesting? Yeah. And I think like that actually it works a lot better as an animated show than it does on the podcast, because you can jump back and forth. You still have like the fun live aspect of it, but you can actually see what they're talking about.
Yeah. I think Starburns Industries, don't they animate Rick and Morty?
Yeah, I think they do most of it. Yeah, I think that's like it's one of those weird things where it's broken up amongst a bunch of different studios, but they do that, and they do Moral Oral and like a couple other shows like that.
Okay.
Awesome. That's awesome to know. So a little bit about HarmonQuest, though, what we should know about what to expect from this show. We mentioned it's animation and live improvisation. Basically, the setting is you can go into the studio. I suppose you could probably buy tickets and watch these people play essentially a D&D campaign. I believe it's based on it's a different type of game. It's a fantasy role-playing campaign, but I think I feel like it has another name. I looked it up, and it was like an extension of the 3rd edition of D&D. So I'm sure there's some sort of specialization that I'm not aware of.
There's probably some sort of rights that they couldn't get or something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, and I know that the most I know about D&D. Have you guys ever played, by the way?
No, I haven't.
Sounds fun. But.
We should really. I mean, I'm coming back to town. We should probably have a night and grab some beers and figure it out. But
yeah, I think it's the kind of thing you need, like an expert, like a Sherpa, to walk you through. Like, I will show you the way.
I think doesn't Jack Danger play?
Yeah, we got to know someone who's played.
Oh,
it's fun.
Justin plays. Chris Schmidt plays.
It's just funny, right? Like a decade ago, it was like you're a nerd in your parents' basement playing D&D, and now we're like in our careers and stuff. And I'm like, I think it's about time I learned to play D&D. I missed all those years of not playing.
So now you're a nerd and you have nothing better to do.
Yeah, I'm out of nerd stuff. I got to go back, basically.
But I cannot imagine going there and watching them record HarmonQuest, because so much of it is the animation.
Yeah. I mean, they are all comedians and stuff, so it's like entertaining, but you're right. It might get a little boring, because then they're also going to have to be like, oh, maybe stop and retake that line. Like, probably pretty boring.
Yeah, I wonder how much they do like with editing or something. I wonder if anybody's done not an AMA per se, but just a recap of like what it's like to actually go to a live show, because that'd be really fun. I think, Ethan, you hit the nail on the head. Is what I was thinking was they're comedians, so it's probably going to be funny anyway. It's like going to a small improv show or something.
Maybe.
But so they essentially play. It's Dan Harmon and Spencer Crittenden is the game master. And then comedians Erin McGathy and Jeff B. Davis, as Ethan mentioned earlier, they basically play a fantasy role-playing campaign, and in the middle of it, they'll cut to like the actions that are happening in the campaign are animated bits. So that's a lot of fun. And I think what's great about the show is that they don't just take the story as it is, too, in the animation. They definitely play it up as being like pretty ridiculous. Oftentimes, Spencer, like the game master, will just be in the story with them for no reason. It's definitely like very aware of what it is, and I think it really plays up that. It's like a strength of it for sure. And each episode of the series, or at least a bunch of the episodes, feature these guest players. So this first episode is Paul F. Tompkins, the comedian, and I gotta say, like right off the bat, it seems like he did not ever play these types of games, which is pretty funny actually. Because I feel like it's like pretty close to improv. I feel like it's something these guys would be good at, and he was good at it.
Yeah, he was like, can I do this? Like,
yeah.
I'm going to pull the fireball out of my pocket.
Yeah, do I have fire? I do. Oh, nice.
Yeah. Oh my God. We'll talk about the story. That moment's great, actually. There's so much I want to put in here. I really just should send you guys a link to. Anybody listening should watch the actual episode, because it's the first episode's free. You don't need a SeeSo account. And then SeeSo does have a 1 week free trial if you haven't already signed up. I think it's only $3.99 a month too, so it's actually not a lot. So if you're into comedy and you're into NBC stuff, it's probably the place to go. I think we got to start off though with the set, which is just in a black room at a table where you would set up this sort of campaign. Everyone's got their notes or whatever you might take. But the set's great because there's just like popcorn and Cheetos out for everybody. And
I didn't see a dark basement basically.
I didn't see anybody eat a single one. So what do they do? Are they really playing? Come on, 2 guys are in suits. This is so unrealistic of a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. They kind of begin the episode with the quest and like what to expect. So we're introduced to all the characters. We're introduced to the actors who'll be playing them, or the comedians who'll be playing them. And we jump right into the animation with, at first it was hard because I'm not too familiar with all of these comedians, so I didn't recognize how close the characters are to what the actual humans look like, right? And I think it's also kind of a portrayal of like what they think of themselves in a weird way. Like Dan Harmon, his character, man, is just like this big slob. He's like half orc guy, but I don't know. It just reminded me, like, I don't know. And then the other guy's the tiny little archer. Jeff Davis is the little archer guy who's like this little shrew or something. So they all have their kind of characters. I believe Paul F. Tompkins is, I guess we're not supposed to know this yet, but he's one of the militiamen or something of the town. And here's the hardest part actually for me about being able to describe what's going on in this episode is I'm literally describing people describing a world they're making up. It's like it's kind of like hope I get it right. And Spencer's character is actually in the first few of these scenes because it's like the game master basically being in the town that they've invented, describing to them what they should expect. And what the story becomes. This episode is also called The Quest Begins, and what it is basically describing the absolute beginning of this quest. And what it is this town has this demon crystal that they're guarding, and every 100 years they throw this festival to essentially praise it and make sure that it stays safe, because otherwise it would rip a portal into a different world where all these demons could get in every century, basically.
Right.
It's a pretty awesome concept for a fantasy thing, probably cliche in some sort of manner, but within 5 or 6 minutes I was in. Like, I didn't care.
Well, yeah, you love that stuff. Like, it's perfect for you.
I just kept thinking of Warcraft the entire time I was watching.
There is orcs, you are sold.
It didn't take much else.
It's fun to like for them to like play with the cliches of it all too, you know, like, oh, this guy is he's an orc, so he must be, you know.
He's green.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's some great moments in the beginning. If we obviously have never played D&D, but the character building in the beginning is pretty awesome. And this is one of my favorite parts of this episode, which was the banter between the actors describing the characters to each other. And then there's a moment where somebody mentions like, yeah, well, Dan, I don't remember any of the character names, so I'm going to get them all wrong. But basically, Dan, yeah, you have parent issues, right? Because your mom left like when you were super young or something. He's like, well, that probably was something I should have brought up, but sure. There's a lot of the show that just like that just feels like improv. And, a moment like that kind of takes you out of the fantasy of what they're doing. It's not full on role play. It's really just aware of the place that they're in, I guess. So they begin doing sort of the ritual of like what everybody's here in this town to do. And actually they call upon Paul F. Tompkins. One of the improv things he has to do here is, go ahead and recite the chant, the pledge to keep the demon soul safe. And it was one of the first moments I felt in this episode like truly improv was happening, aside from just the character stuff. And he read it very much in a like a dad would say a funny grace at dinner. Like it all rhymed. It didn't need to rhyme at all, but it was still pretty great.
Yeah.
Also, I believe Spencer, the dungeon master, is who's playing the like chief of the town, which is hilarious that the chief doesn't really do anything in the entire episode. It's them. It's this ragtag group of heroes that are supposed to protect this thing.
Yeah, he's just there to fill in the holes of the story, right?
Yeah. And there are lots of, because it is live improvisation, there are lots of cutbacks. I'd say a majority of the episode is inside of the cartoon. But most of it, I think, or a handful of it does cut back to the actors actually playing the game. So after we do the chant or the reciting of the pledge to protect this demon sort of crystal, we get an introduction to Erin's character. And she shows up. She's this barbarian who has basically broken into the village. So that's how bad the militia is here. Nobody's protecting anything. Smashes some cart, and instantly her consequence is that she has to pay money to Paul F. Tompkins. Like, I don't remember if this was somewhere in here was like the first dice roll of the event, which is even somebody who has never played Dungeons and Dragons, I know that a lot of decisions that your characters do, aside from the story building, the decisions that happen, whether it's like, I slash this guy with a sword, or I leap over a canyon, or something like that. Everything's decided by a dice roll. Basically, I believe the higher the number, the better success chance or the better success rate that you have on something.
Maybe that's
my
understanding.
too.
But
Yeah.
I feel like there could be odd rules, like, you rolled a 17, that means you instantly die.
Yeah. I think that's a 13, Brad, but we'll go with 17. No.
17, yeah.
So this was a funny moment, a way to introduce your character, because as the story had gotten rolling, I kind of almost already forgot. I was like, oh yeah, Erin, there's another person sitting at this table. We should know that there's going to be another character here. There's also lots of moments, I can't remember quite if it happened here, so I'm going to go a little out of order, but where the actors start speaking about moments or things that are happening to their character, and then they start speaking, wait a second, this is Dan here speaking. Is my character doing this? Is this really a thing happening? There's lots of breaking of the characters too.
Yeah, they do a good job of like cutting to the animation and having the characters in the animation say things that are off character, and they can get little moments out of that, like funny weird stuff happening.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite parts of breaking what should be. This probably should be us showing the live performance, but it's funnier if we show this hero who's protecting from all these demons, deciding what color his clothes would be or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And so they don't trust the barbarian character at first here. They're not sure what to do, and she lies to them about like, oh, there were all these people chasing me. They look outside the castle. There's nothing there, of course. She was just, I guess, broke into the castle or whatever. But they come across these trees, these 7 trees that are kind of mysteriously shaking, and I don't quite remember what exactly wakes them up, but they basically turn into these hooded figures, these like acolytes who are going to actually come and take the demon rune.
Chief, we got spinning hooded X trees out there.
Oh, shit.
I produce my axe, which I have named Only Friend out of necessity, and I go into a barbarian rage.
You fly into a barbarian rage violently.
I feel terrified, but also luckier.
One of the figures throws back its hood, revealing a jackal's head. It speaks. We are the heralds Knights of the Manticore, we have come to collect the 3 arcane rune stones. Give them to us or face the consequences.
There's no way we're giving these dudes the rune stones.
No.
No way.
And this is most of the story here, is them now fighting these demons, which is, I guess, your classic D&D thing where you basically venture for a while and then you have to fight. And that's the end of the campaign for that moment.
Yeah. And since this is kind of setting up the rest of the season, it makes sense, I think, that we would show what you would understand or believe to be in a D&D game is a battle sequence. Is basically what the rest of the episode is. And if this gives you any indication of what it's like to play D&D, boy, does it take a while to go through fight. It's not a video game, guys. You don't just run up and slash them down, and maybe you die, maybe you don't. You get a lot of decisions to be made. I love that. Quickly, without even thinking it, obviously Spencer's played enough D&D to be able to think on his feet or know what these things are, but there was a moment where it's like one of the figures takes off his hood and he's a jackal, and I was like, what? I would have never thought of jackal as the thing that was under there. It's probably some old guy. I don't know,
Yeah.
And it's great to see these characters. I actually love seeing the characters so far that are, I think this actually might be the only one, that are not human-like or humanoid, but are like beasts that have like regular guy voices. I think that's my favorite of some of the stuff in the episode. So they're deciding how to sort of do battle here. One of the biggest first things that happen is Erin's character, the barbarian, goes into this barbarian rage, and then instantly, I think, scores one of the first critical hits of the show, and I guess the game that they're playing.
Right.
And then her character is like roid raged out for the most of the rest of the episode. Which is pretty
there's
great.
one point where she's like, am I still raging? And then he's like, yeah. It's like 5 minutes later.
Yeah, I kind of forgot. There's a lot of great callbacks in this episode to remember. You have to remember these things when you're doing these campaigns. We get Dan Harmon tries to actually battle and misses into a tree, and then later claims that was what sparked their entire like victory. Basically, like, yeah, well, I tried real hard, so. Pretty much. And then at one point, Paul F. Tompkins says, well, there's too many guys here. We got to get the militia. I guess it was determined that most of the militia, except for these 3 poor saps, were off on vacation because, of course, why not? There's actually a great moment here. I had to grab this quote, which was, everyone was gone, but they were talking about, wait, we're doing the centennial like pledge to this demon thing, and they're gone? They're on vacation now? We only do this once every 100 years. And somebody brings up, yeah, well, we practice every year. They should, they were here last year for practice. And, they were deciding if it was on autopilot or not because they practice every year. I believe Dan Harmon mentions there's nothing more on autopilot than an annual centennial, which is pretty great. So everybody's kind of getting their attacks in here. One of the best parts of the episode, I think, was this Jeff Davis little archer goblin character basically deciding, I'm going to make a plan to go all the way around the castle and sneak up on him. And they decide that's going to take you like 6 turns. So he's gone for most of the episode. And what becomes of this is like a bigger and bigger build to him trying to sneak up on these hooded acolyte figures. And he's like, every time I come up from behind a rock, I got like more stuff on me. I'm like covered in trees and sticks and all kinds of stuff. He's got this crazy ghillie suit on. And one of his, there's this huge setup for this big letdown, basically. It's great comedic timing of everything. At one point, they're trying to determine how close, okay, there's 2 guys ahead of him. How close is he to being able to knock them out? Or basically go cut them with his little dagger. And he can't decide how far apart are they? Okay, are they in a line? Well, they're 2 people, so of course they're in a line. So he has to ask to clarify, are they in a segment? To which Spencer replies with, any 2 people would be in a segment. Basically connecting them. Just some great banter with that. Like, I don't know how to describe it. The show constantly breaks out of what's happening in the fantasy, but it adds to it so much.
Caked in mud, you round the corner behind 2 cultists who seem to be left alive.
Are they standing side by side?
No.
No? How far apart are they?
They're about 6 feet apart.
6 feet apart? Are they standing like in a line?
They're
They're
standing in a line. There's 2 of them. They're standing
Are they standing in a segment?
Any 2 people would be standing in a segment.
Are they facing the same way?
Yeah, they are.
Because I'm very stealthy. I take out my rapier, which is honed to a razor's edge, and I run past them from behind. Wow! And just slice them all Achilles style.
Okay, you got it too. You judged the distance wrong, like your sword is this long and you were this far away, and so you're really just running by two people.
But you look great.
Yeah. The Harmontown podcast, like, I think did a lot of groundwork for making those people comfortable with each other and like they're actual friends. So it comes through in the show definitely.
And there's also the moment here when they're battling where you guys mentioned Paul F. Tompkins' character pulls out, he just has alchemist fire, and he gets a bad roll and misses comically with the fire, throws it up in the air, lights his hair on fire, and we get this once again, a callback later on, like 5-6 minutes later, that his hair was still on fire the entire time, and he had just gotten used to it, I guess. It was pretty great. I also like that he had to clarify, wait, when you say comically, if people saw, would they be laughing at me, or is it just like, yeah. All this is happening, all this great battle stuff, and then this like super strong, like super villain guy just walks right through the fight happening and grabs the crystal.
Yeah, and basically unleashes the demons, and they're like, "Oh crap! Why didn't we see that guy coming?"
Yeah, don't quite understand how all this fight's happening. This maybe would frustrate me in a D&D campaign when the game master can just go, oh yeah, you just fought for 2 hours or something in this battle, but the boss showed up and just took whatever you were guarding. So,
yeah,
crap. And I believe he's the one that ends up striking down Paul F. Tompkins' character. He does a bunch of damage. I love the conversation they have to decide and do the quick math of like, you have 42 health, you took 45 damage. Oh, I'm being written off this episode, huh? All right, I guess that's how it's going. So we do get kind of his. Not so much death scene. It's basically Aaron being a barbarian is removing his bones to make like a skeleton tribute for him.
Yeah.
Her character's great. I think I had a lot of fun with her character, just destroying people and then being okay with just ripping bones out of people. And what we get is basically that these heroes now have to go on this quest to go get this thing that they were supposed to protect, this like demon protection rune type of thing. So if that doesn't grab you, I don't know what does. That's pretty much the little battle was fun, but now we have a place to go. So if you're into the show, I think it was a really good way to wrap up episode 1. The quest begins to kind of continue the story. So I've been talking a whole lot. It's really hard to describe everything that's happening in the show, but I want to ask you guys, like, did you have favorite moments of this? Do you like the format? Like, what is it about this show? I hope I'm not crazy thinking I'm the only person here that enjoys it.
Yeah, I like the show a lot. I especially like the moment where a little goblin guy tried to, sneak around and cut the ankles of the 2 bad guys, and it didn't really work out. So he just ran away. So that was pretty good. Yeah, it's really funny and great to watch. I don't see myself signing up for the network and paying to watch these. I'm just gonna be honest. If it was on Hulu, which I thought NBC owned, doesn't make any sense why it's not there. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think it reinvigorated my SeeSo need. I think I might reapply for that. It is
just
weird.
Stay logged in on a computer at the office, and I'll just watch it then.
Yeah, exactly.
Just watch him at lunch.
One thing I really liked about it as a Harmonian, which is a Harmontown fan.
That's not
what they call them. No, it's a real thing. Trust me.
Okay.
One thing I really liked about it is that Erin McGathy, that the girl, she is Dan Harmon's ex-wife, who she was on the podcast like when they started dating, and then when they got married, and then they started the D&D campaigns together and stuff, and then they got divorced, and then apparently they're good with each other now, and so it was fun to
still do the show.
Yeah, as a fan of the show, it was like, oh, she's a real human being, but like she's basically a character that I can now enjoy again.
Makes sense.
And their interactions are entertaining because they're like the next couple.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like I would guess that a lot of these comedians come back for a lot of Dan Harmon's stuff, right? Like you definitely get to know them if you listen to his other podcasts and stuff too.
Yeah.
I'm getting a very serious, like, both Chris Hardwick and maybe more so Chris Hardwick with Nerdist and what can I think? Oh, Kevin Smith with Smodcast stuff. It's like he creates a successful platform, and if you're into him and his friends, they've created this like network and all kinds of shows that make you kind of feel like you're hanging out with them.
Yeah, they have a community of people that like come back all the time. Like Kumail Nanjiani used to be on his podcast all the time, and then he basically started his own podcast, and then I started listening to that, and now I'm like lifelong fan of that dude. So it's like there's lots of examples of that for sure.
It's so crazy that I feel like 5 years ago I couldn't have told you who Dan Harmon was. I wouldn't have known the guy, even though I looked up his credits and he'd done some stuff. I'm like, oh, I've heard of that, but I guess I think we're in a different age now where kind of like the people who are creators can have a certain sort of celebrity, especially if they're making stuff and building communities. You're more likely to hear about them versus the guy who maybe just pushes out shows and that's it. There's nothing built around it, right? And I think opportunities like this give fans a real chance to go be part of kind of I want to say Harmontown, but like the Harmon universe or something. Like I can go to this show and feel like I was part of a little group of friends playing a game together. And I think that's really cool. I don't know. It's like, I don't know how much longer like broadcast regular crap is going to be around. So I always like seeing stuff like this. I think this is way more fun, way more interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting that like I've only heard a handful of people ever bring this show up, and it came out like a year ago or something, and like part of why I know about it is because I'm in that universe, or like just through happenstance, like I listen to his other thing, and so I know about it. But it's like a full TV show that's on a very niche broadcasting thing. It's online, you have to pay for, so it is kind of hard to like come across. But
yeah, the Rick and Morty people may come across it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
same.
A lot of overlap.
And I think that there's been other, especially web-based shows. There's been other shows. I know that Felicia Day had one for a little while, and I believe that Will Wheaton has a tabletop show, basically a show around people playing a fantasy role-playing game. So you're along for the journey, but you don't have to worry about rolling die or like playing the game or anything. But I think this combines animation in such a comical, great way that it's like, I don't know, it's a perfect mix of this. So definitely, I think we all encourage you guys, if you want to check out HarmonQuest, maybe you already have because it's a year old now. But the first episode's over on YouTube. You can watch that one for free. And then, of course, SeeSo has the free subscription if you want to watch it there. There's probably other means, but we're not going to encourage that. It's up to you. I don't know, whatever. So, well, cool. Well, we got to thank Ethan, of course, for joining us this week to talk about everything and anything Dan Harmon, because, being in the office with you for years, you brought him up, and I just kind of never thought to go check any of the stuff out. And now I'm sort of like, literally since I started watching this, I'm like obsessed, and all I've been thinking about all day is watching more HarmonQuest.
I know, I've been telling you for years, man. Come on.
When do you officially become a Harmonian?
I think when you listen to all 400 podcast episodes, and I don't know.
Oh my god,
you're about there.
I'm about there.
If you money, you count.
Yeah, if you give them any bit of money. So if you get the $3.99 to SeeSo, yeah,
I'm pretty much in. Do I get my membership card shortly after that? Probably.
Yeah,
so you have to roll the right number on the die.
Yeah. I tried to apply to be a Harmonian, and I rolled a 2. So now I'm just a Nerdist supporter. That sounded way meaner than I meant it to be. All right, let's get out of here. Ethan, thanks for joining us, of course. Where can people find out where you're at when you're not recording this fine show with us?
You can find me on Twitter at Ethan Barnowsky.
Cool. And if you guys are checking out the video version, it's been there the whole time. You should have been tweeting at him the entire episode, of course.
Whoa.
Brad, how about you?
You can follow me on Twitter. It's @brad, and then my blog is digitalhitchhiker.com. Great,
guys. Definitely go check these guys out. They're cool dudes. I can vouch for that. And one of them's a Harmonian, so you got that going for you. You should put that in your bio, by the way. Yeah. Of course, the show, or you guys can follow me on Twitter, rather, @Jacob Williams. And of course, the show. You want more Toon Talk Weekly? We're on Twitter at Toon Talk Weekly, Facebook.com/Toon Talk Weekly. Heck, we're one of the dozen people over on Google Plus as well, so you can find us at Toon Talk Weekly over there. Our email, let us know what you think of the show, maybe a favorite episode of HarmonQuest or similar shows like it. We'd love to hear from you. ToonTalkWeekly@gmail.com. And finally, the website, ToonTalkWeekly.com, the main hub for the show, all 210 episodes over there alphabetically for you guys if you want to watch anything from before. I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to think we got to like revisit what we think about some shows maybe we liked or didn't like so much if we've watched more.
Never. Press on. Never look back.
Well, at this point, we're just going to die before we finish all the cartoons. That's really what's going to happen. So we're never going to finish. I should do a second episode, second show called like Toon Talk, whatever, redo or something. You know what I mean? Like Toon Talk Toon Talk Mulligans.
Do it over on Anchor.
Yeah, you need to give more to the Toon Talk Weeklyans that follow you weekly that really need more content.
Yeah, wait. If you guys had a following, what would they be? What would they be called?
Like personally?
Yeah, like if it was your name, your brand,
cult leaders,
and you know, like Dan Harmon, they're Harmonians, right? So I don't have a good name, but I guess you could just be Williams's. You just say a lot of ES's at the end.
I thought you just Big Willies.
The Big Willies is good.
Big Willies. Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
Well, I'm gonna go with the Barnows and
Barnowskis?
the Barnows and the Chimmeys, and that's really just that's actually a modern version of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet.
You too can be a chimney. Just sign up for my platform and pay me $2.99 a month.
It's only $2.99, guys. SeeSo's $3.99. Get on this right now.
Get in early before I become, too big.
Well, you guys can join the Chimmeys or the Barnows any other time you want to watch this episode. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Toon Talk Weekly. We'll be back next week with another cartoon.
Take care.
To learn more about the show, visit ToonTalkWeekly.com or follow us on Twitter at ToonTalkWeekly.